Just one further question that goes to that. Given the limited time frames that we're working towards, and let's say that this council is interested in engaging with the process, is it desirable for us to start thinking about it now so that we're in a state of preparedness?
I don't think it's in my position to comment on what the council should do or the governing body should do in terms of how it engages. So I would defer to you and your good judgment as to what you do next.
I think the officer kind of has answered that question, Councillor Walker. I don't think he can take it any further at this stage. So, Councillor Crum.
Thanks, Cotto. My question for you is just whether your understanding fits in with my understanding, and I actually wrote down what was on that website, a government website, and I quote, "New Zealand supports release of text before it is signed by TPP governments." Right. So I'll just repeat that again. Yep. New Zealand supports release of text before it is signed by TPP governments. So that's my understanding, and it would be at that time that we can analyse its implications for us and local government.
Okay, thanks.
So,
yeah. Well, we haven't written the debate yet. So.
Well, no, my question is that your understanding as it is my understanding?
Correct. I think we've been reading the same information that's available at the INFAT website, and that's correct.
Councillor Casey?
Oh, thanks, Corey. The Chair said I could ask you about local government when you came, and my question is, we heard from Barry Coates this morning that 14 councils have expressed concerns, as has this council. And are you, as an officer of council, collating that information so that we can get a sense of what are the concerns of the other 14 councils that have made representations on this? Because I'm really concerned to hear today that Local Government New Zealand has no concerns about the TPPA.
Oh, I don't know if that was the...
No, that's what I heard this morning.
Chairman, can I just make a point here?
No, I've got you on the list, Councillor Lee. You're coming up, but Councillor Casey, I don't know if that... But anyway, can you answer that question?
Councillor Casey, in response to your question, our team, the Global Partnerships and Strategy team, we haven't engaged with the local government because there's other parts of council that do so on behalf of the council. So the relationship with local government around these types of issues does not sit with our team.
Which team would it sit with?
I would have to defer to the Democracy Services team to advise who that is.
I felt an expectation to answer a question. Look, the interactions with local government are many and varied, so I certainly take Koro's acknowledgement, but you've also got a working group that Councillor Webster is part of, and that's the political representation. But we work with local government in many respects, but I've personally not undertaken any discussion with them on this matter, and I wouldn't expect that I would either.
Just in response to that, then, we shouldn't be rewriting history if there are other councils have...
No, we're asking questions at the moment.
Yeah. I'm interested in our relationship with other councils on this. This is a national agreement. We are one council of very many. I'm hearing from Barry that 14 councils have expressed concerns. I'm interested in how we're coordinating.
Okay,
That's done through Local Government New Zealand. I'm unclear as to how we feed into Local Government New Zealand, other than to hear this morning that Local Government New Zealand has no concerns about this.
Okay, I think Councillor Casey, that, you know,
if Councillor Casey doesn't understand the process,
no, at this, Councillor Kubo, I'm talking.
Order.
Can you just give me the chance to talk, please? I think that the process has been outlined by Mr. Dickinson, and it is clear that there will be feedback to the public, and obviously local government will be part of that, as is the case with any parliamentary process, and that is the time that we can make submissions. That's right. And once and until that happens, I mean, local government wouldn't be kind of getting involved or doing things just without having the facts, which is so essential to move something, or deal with something like this. So that's the way that I understood what Councillor Webster was saying. Right. So, Member Namani, and then Councillor Lee.
I'll leave mine.
Okay, Councillor Lee. Your question,
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
This is a very, very political matter. it's political in Washington
No, have you got
and
a
it's
question?
political in
No,
Wellington. I just want to make a point here. Members should refrain from steering political questions at the officer. If we're asking for technical advice is one thing, don't ask for leading questions on politics.
I think Mr Dickinson is actually, he's talking about the process of a very complex situation, and that, if I've heard him correctly, he was outlining what the process has been, and that's where we are at the moment. So if no other questions, I thank Mr Dickinson, and you can return to your seat, and that clarifies that. We do have a local board input in relation to this from Mr Graham East of the
Albert Eden.
but are you here of your board?
I am here. I have my chairman's authority to speak on behalf of my board. I'm not claiming to speak on behalf of the other 8 boards that have voted. But if I could just, before I do my, just to answer some questions Mr Dickinson wasn't able to answer. The councils which have voted...
No, you can see that this is a pretty politically charged issue, and so we want to keep it to
trying to provide information,
facts.
Mr Chairman.
Point of order, Mr Chairman.
Point of order?
Yeah, point of order.
Yeah.
Before Mr East begins, I wonder if you would just remind him of the time restrictions that are placed on submitters during...
I need no reminding.
No, 5 minutes, he knows
I haven't
5 minutes.
started.
But I think
It's not a point of order,
as
Dick.
you've seen with these issues today, questions do elicit further information. So Mr East has been here before and given presentations on behalf of his board.
I'm sure he's well aware.
Thank you, Mr East. Thank you.
Okay. I'm very frustrated that there's a whole bunch of misinformation being given, including the suggestion that we could debate the degree of transparency. So far there has been no transparency, not in relation to the issues that we want to deal with. I put that up there because in the absence of information from the government, we need to go to the NAFTA, the North America Free Trade Agreement, which is the blueprint upon which TPPA is based. Now, if I'm wrong, let the government prove it by releasing the text, but in the absence of any information from them, this is the golden document, and the representatives of Canada and Mexico, who are the joint parties with America in the NAFTA, were assured that they wouldn't be stung by the investor-state provisions. But there, in plain language, for purposes of this agreement, unless otherwise specified, a reference to a state or province includes local governments of that state or province. Unless something has changed, that is very likely to be in the TPPA that's just been initialed by our government. Under the American rules, they've got 90 days to conclude the agreement, and they have to release the text within 30... So the text is going to be out within a month. Like it or not, if we don't get it from Wellington, we'll get it from reading overseas websites. And some of the information has already started to come out. The Japanese have put out a summary. Unfortunately, it's in Japanese, which makes it rather hard. They're the most expensive so far. The Canadians have put out a 30-page document. These are summary documents. They don't go into the full text. What we really need is for our experts to actually go through the thing with a fine-tooth comb. Now, in front of you, you have got a copy of the resolution, which was the first of the local board resolutions that went round on the 2nd of September. Turn to the middle page, and you'll see down the bottom of the middle page, points 7 and 8, there's a bit of yellow highlighting. This shows you how local government can be affected in very real ways by such an international agreement. You just go to the experience of Canada and Mexico over the last 2 decades. While I'm talking, I'm just flicking there 10 cases under the NAFTA, where the governments of Canada, America or Mexico have been sued. There's another 10 and another 10 and another 8, and I ran out of steam there. There's 500 more. Total value $40 billion. And most of them haven't been concluded and aren't intended to be concluded, and some have been withdrawn. They're really just
threatening. You've all heard of lawyers' letters where people threaten to sue you if you don't cease and desist something, or you don't do things our way, we'll sue you. That's the sort of thing that councils are going to find affecting the way in which they do things. But just coming back to the thing on the hard copy in front of you, the metal-clad case. This was a case of Guadalcazar City having local people falling ill, and this wasn't just in their heads, this was coming from their doctors. So they went to the state, who closed the dump. Metalclad then sued Mexico. They couldn't sue the state or the city for $90 million US. It went through a panel. This doesn't go through a court of law. It's not like in a domestic court of law. It's an international tribunal populated by people whose day job is investment analyst. So they see the world through dollars and cents and balance sheets and bottom lines. They don't know about environmental concerns or health concerns. They just know the fact that the plaintiff has had expropriation of shareholder value. That's how it's expressed, which is absolutely true. The value of their company has been diminished, but it's been done for good public reasons, and I would say that protecting the town water supply is probably one of the most important functions of any local government. So there's a specific example. Now, we've heard from an officer earlier that the government will transparently release information. They'll only do it if they are asked to do so. And the sort of information that's on the website that was referred to, it's all about the trade benefits. Well, you can dispute the trade benefits, but we don't have a big deal about the trade benefits. I'm not terribly interested in trade, except obviously I'd like to see the economy flourish. But the concerns that I do have about issues about local decision making, who gets to make the decisions and in what framework. So we could wind up with things like, should a future government wish to amend the Resource Management Act, it gets challenged through an investor-state dispute valued at millions of dollars on the basis that it's going to diminish their ability to make money. Is my time nearly up? I could go on, but I think there may be some questions, so I'll stop right there.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Mr. East? No, there don't seem to be any questions. So, Councillor Wayne Walker?
Yeah, just going back to the comment that you make about information being available. If we make the assumption, and I think it's a correct one, that there will be information available on the website through other countries, I would suggest, and I seek your opinion, that it's highly desirable for our council to be able to evaluate that situation. Otherwise, we're going to be in an invidious situation where our constituents, Aucklanders...
No, hang on. I asked a question, please.
I'm asking a question.
Well, you seem
to
be...
well, I'm not going to even have the chance to ask the question unless you want to ask it for me, Mr. Chair. Would you like to do that? So I'll put it to you to ask my question.
No, get him out. Well, okay, I think Mr. Walker is absolutely correct that if you don't ask for this sort of information in a timely way, there's not much point getting the information 5 minutes before the thing's voted off in Parliament, which is what is likely to happen. So we will get the information, but it'll be after Tim Gross's bus has disappeared down the road. We'll be able to see the back of the bus. We want to see the front of the bus, okay, so that we can engage with it.
Councillor Casey.
I think Mr. East did answer my question.
Oh, okay. If you're satisfied with the answer, that's excellent. Thank you. Councillor Casey.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. It's just through Mr. Kimpton. The third part of the Albert Eden Local Board resolution seeks some clarification, and the first one seeks clarification. The second part, make available to local boards and Auckland citizens the government's response. Can you tell me how we're doing that in terms of local boards and specifically that Albert Eden request?
We've got the recommendations of the local board, but you're talking about the second one, is it?
Yep.
Doesn't talk about local boards there.
I think I'm also asking how we're going to, it's a bit like the previous question, how are we going to come to a
Okay, well, it's not probably a council.
How are we
fund.
going to come to a council consensus with the 21 local boards and the governing body?
Look, I don't know, Councillor Casey.
Well, I'm asking through the chair to Mr
Okay,
Kimpton.
we'll ask Mr Kimpton if he can talk about that, but it is a political decision. You're talking about politics, and Councillor Lee was
No, I'm talking about the Albert Eden Board's recommendations,
Yes.
C2.
But we make decisions. I mean, people are talking about the fact that the councillors are here to govern, so that's the decision we make. But anyway, Mr Kimpton, have you got any ideas on that?
Look, my recommendation is that through this is a government-led initiative, and so I would be, if there are the national assessment that's been talked about, that's going to be made available through the MFAT website. So our responsibility, I think, is to direct people to that source for information. In terms of whether we have a view, well, not we, but in terms of whether you as elected members and governing body members have a view on the adequacy of that response, I think that's a political discussion, and you bring that at the right time to the right committee.
So at the moment there's no procedure for formulating a council response. It's just that there are 8 boards who've passed resolutions already.
Certainly, and I think that you need to look at our response to this issue in the same way that we also look to respond on and make submissions on other issues of legislation from time to time, which you do, and that's a political response. So that would be my advice to you. I'm not sure whether you want to set up a separate process.